The dust is the first thing he notices when he steps back into the preserved scene, the air thick, stale, like a room sealed not only by tape but by time itself. Light filters through the blinds in narrow, trembling lines, catching the suspended particles that drift with slow gravity. The place feels paused, like the breath of the past held in a quiet chest. He stands still, almost reverent, as though any stride might disturb not only floorboards but memories that never learned to rest. The carpet is faded, the wallpaper washed of its original hue, and the silence is absolute yet strangely alert, as if waiting. Her name was Linnea Hartwell, age 28, a cello instructor who lived alone in this tidy Columbus duplex, teaching children in the afternoons, rehearsing at night. A woman with handwritten scores tucked inside cabinets, minor key melodies in pencil arcs. The files describe her life economically, but he recalls more. The careful way her neighbors spoke of her gentle tone, her tendency to hum while sorting mail, her love for evening walks. All of that sits now against the stillness of this sealed room, and the investigator feels it. Subtle weight, not heavy, just present. He moves toward the center, not touching anything yet. He lets his eyes adjust to the dim. A photo remains on the table, a black and white print that never made it into evidence storage because it was overlooked. Linnea, smiling mildly in front of a lakeside cabin, her hair in a loose braid, horizon behind her soft and pale. He wonders, not sentimentally but practically, if this image held meaning she never had time to share. His gloved hand hovers but never touches. The quiet hum of the overhead bulb breaks the hush. He listens to it like a tone from her instrument, just a note held longer than expected. The room smells of collected years, faint wood polish, a whisper of the past that is neither cold nor comforting, simply there. His return today is procedural, prompted by a directive from the unit. Reevaluate all dormant cases within this time frame using updated cross-comparative analysis. He did not volunteer, though there is something in the task that feels corrective. He was here once as a younger officer, fresh in assignment, before understanding the gravity of entering a home that no longer belongs to anyone living. He remembers the tapping, the cameras, the measurement tools, the distant echo of chatter that was more logistical than emotional. He approaches the cabinet where her music sheets remain stacked, untouched. When he slides the door open, it whispers on its track. Inside are scores organized with neat precision. Bach, Saint-Saëns, handwritten compositions labeled only by date, not title. He notes that discipline. It means she expected order, expected her world to make sense. He writes that thought in his notebook, expectation of order. A floorboard lifts a soft sigh under his step. Beneath dust, he sees the faint indentation where her cello stand once stood. The stand is long gone, but the mark remains like a soft imprint of her daily rhythm. Then the file, a beige box, its edges worn. He sets it on the table, careful, gloved. Inside lie statements collected in 1986, each typed on crisp pages with lines of quiet facts. He reads in steady cadence. Neighbor Mrs. K. She walked evenings near the Elmline Park, always alone, always polite. Student A.M. She taught me bow hold. She said sound should flow like breath. Sister June. Linnea called Sundays, routine, steady, predictable. No drama, no rupture. Just clean lines of schedule, habit, tenderness without spectacle. The investigator pauses. Routine can hide patterns, and patterns can hide interruptions. He underlines a phrase in the sister's statement, always predictable. He writes, predictability can form blind spots. He turns to the timeline of that week. February 10, routine lessons. February 11, rehearsals. February 12, quiet evening at home. February 13, last known contact at 8, 32 p.m. Nothing extraordinary noted, nothing out of rhythm. And yet something small must have shifted, something that logic will eventually sharpen. He studies the photo again. Lakeside cabin. He recalls reading an older note. Summer visits with a small ensemble group. A name repeated in that section. Benjamin R. He reviews the past interview summary. Ben stated no disagreement, no change in tone, only that Linnea grew quieter over time. His pen taps the table softly. Quieter over time. That phrasing stands out, not emotional but observational. He opens another envelope inside the file. Fingerprints cataloged, comparison sheets, objects photographed. One object he had forgotten, a metronome, brass-framed, resting on her shelf in the image archive. The archive photo shows it angled slightly, not centered. An irregular detail in a highly ordered space. He writes, asymmetry in consistent environment suggests shift in attention or presence. His breath is steady. He is not here to dramatize memory. He is here to sort evidence like gentle artifacts. He allows a brief internal acknowledgement. Returning now feels like meeting her presence without intrusion, recognizing her not as a case but as a person once entirely alive inside this room. He turns to the witness map, closest homes, car routes, street lamps. One lamp at the corner noted as malfunctioning that week. This detail had been dismissed in the earlier lead summaries, routine infrastructure review, but he marks it now. Darkness outside her window during habitual evening hours alters her environment. He writes, altered exterior lighting equals altered sense of safety. He moves then to the desk drawer. Inside, sheet music and a torn envelope. He places it on the table. The envelope has no postage stamp, just her name written in steady ink. Inside, a single paper folded twice. He opens it cautiously. It reads, "Your final piece is nearly complete. Keep the rhythm as you always do." No signature, no date. Yet the tone is not alarming, merely familiar, almost instructional. He writes, "Message implies shared work, shared understanding." He studies the handwriting. It is neat, controlled. He recalls the cello instructor from the nearby academy, Mr. Hale, who once said Linnea preferred collaboration without spotlight. Could she have shared compositions privately with someone? He reviews the interview with Hale. The typed summary states, Linnea worked with a quiet composer, initials BR, on personal arrangements. B.R. Benjamin R. again. The investigator leans back slightly. Not revelation, just connection. He flips to the technical appendices. There is an objectized catalog of all items removed from the scene. He scans it. The metronome is listed. The music sheets are listed. The cello is listed. But a folder referenced by Mr. Hale, the winter arrangements, is absent. The folder is mentioned in multiple interviews but never logged. A missing folder is not sensational. It is administrative. Still, he writes, absence in catalog must reflect either removal during initial search oversight or possession by collaborator. His gaze wanders the room once more, absorbing the faint ticking of the bulb's electric current. He imagines her last night not in dramatic posture, simply moving through her normal rhythm, placing her bow back into its velvet-lined case, adjusting the metronome to its resting angle. He slowly returns to the cabinet. He looks deeper behind the stacked scores. A thin cardboard backing sits flush with the side panel. He slides a gloved fingertip along the seam and lifts it. A small, flat cassette is behind it, label blank. He examines it without inserting it into any device. He notes its presence, its placement. Hidden but not deeply, simply tucked away. He writes, cassette suggests recorded practice or composition exchange. He seals it in a fresh evidence bag, marking today's date, feeling neither excitement nor dread, only focus. Next, he turns off the overhead light. Natural light fills the space again in the same narrow beams. He stands in the quiet, sensing her life not as tragedy, but as structure, rhythm, expectation. His notebook contains only clipped observations, nothing emotional, nothing embellished. Yet as he steps across the creaking board once more, he feels a small, human impression. This room held a steady life interrupted not by spectacle but by something precise. He closes the door lightly, letting the latch catch without force, sealing the space again. He knows the logic will come, the answer in time, not dramatic but exact. He leaves with the cassette, the note, the absence of the winter folder filed neatly in his thoughts. Outside, the air is clearer, but he carries the room's stillness with him like a quiet chord held just beyond its natural resolution. He walks to his car, sets the evidence on the passenger seat, and drives with steady hands, aware that he has re-entered something personal, yet required. There is no closure yet, only the first movement of a long, measured composition. He writes one final line before pulling onto the main road. Truth arrives like tempo, not sudden, but counted. The cassette rests in an evidence envelope on his desk now, labeled with the date and hour, edges sharp against the controlled order of his workspace. The office is quiet. Evening light presses through the blinds in thin amber stripes, falling across folders that have not been reopened in decades. He moves without haste, the way one might handle something fragile yet no longer breakable. The tape deck is an older unit maintained for analog review. He sets it on the table, threads the cassette in with practiced, silent motions. A soft click, a low hum. Then the sound, strings slow, drawn with purpose. Cello, he recognizes her pace. Linnea's tone is steady, almost mathematical in its restraint, yet deeply human. A motif repeats, 3 rising notes then one held note like breath against winter glass. Light static rides the edges, not distracting, just the sound of time preserving itself imperfectly. He listens. A second instrument enters. Piano, not polished but careful, keys pressed with someone who knows her rhythm intimately. The harmony falls into place with delicate order. He writes, Duet confirmed. Shared timing, equal understanding. He lets the track play, eyes fixed not on the recorder but on the far wall, as if watching sound form shape. The piece continues for 3 minutes, then a pause, followed by faint voices. The tape hisses softly, holding their conversation in thin, preserved strands. Linnea's voice, crisp, calm, maybe slower, let the notes find their own way. A man responds, quiet, almost hesitant. If I slow more, I lose the line. Minimal words, but the cadence tells its own detail. He notes, comfort between collaborators, absence of strain. A bow scrape, a sigh of breath. Then her voice again, we will refine next week. That is the last spoken line. The tape continues with another attempt at the piece, slightly altered tempo, slightly different emphasis on the third held note. He writes, emotional tone neutral, controlled. The tape ends abruptly, click silence. He lets it run to the tail, listening to nothing, watching the reels spin like time rewinding without instruction. When it stops, he removes the cassette, sets it back in its envelope. Unmoved externally, but internally something fits. Rhythm of relationship, documented cooperation, nothing jagged. He opens the case file again. He re-examines the missing winter folder. The compositions on the tape do not carry dramatic mood. They are consistent with her method, soft restraint, exact tempo. Yet the absence of that folder remains the only irregularity in her otherwise complete catalog. He reviews an old interview appendix. A note from a former student of hers states she prepared a winter piece unlike her usual style, bolder, more pronounced. He writes, "Deviation from her measured tone may signify private evolution, not public intention." He scans the timeline of interviews again. Benjamin R. spoke only once, his words transcribed. She was precise, nothing abrupt. The investigator circles that, nothing abrupt. Yet death, even when unexplained, interrupts rhythm. He writes, "Abruptness occurred externally, not internally." Morning arrives unnoticed. The blinds now display pale light. He stands, stretches slightly, and reaches for the archived police storage database. He inputs her name, case reference, date range. A list appears. Among the logged items is a storage entry dated 2 weeks after the original scene search. It references a sealed envelope discovered among Academy files, submitted by anonymous drop. The document logged, photocopy of handwritten composition notes, winter arrangements. Status, misfiled, reassigned to Music Archive Division. The line is plain, administrative. He writes, "Folder never lost, simply displaced." He requests retrieval from archive holdings. The clerk, voice soft and neutral over the phone, states it will be delivered that afternoon. He waits, not impatiently, just steadily, studying the cassette envelope while the office breathes its regulated quiet. Papers rest flat, no chaos in sight. At 2:14 p.m. the folder arrives, a slim packet in a labeled courier pouch. He opens it carefully. Inside, handwritten notations, her script, precision, confidence. But one page differs. Not her hand. The ink is slightly heavier, the strokes not curved but angled. It is a revision sheet. At the bottom, initials BR. He lays the sheet beside her original phrase markings. Her notes curve upward, his shift downward. The dynamic is clear. She expanded, he contracted. No conflict implied, simply variation. He turns to the back of the page. A date, February 11. 2 days before she was last heard. He writes, "Collaborative revision continued until final known week." He reads the musical line silently, hearing her bow in memory but without sentiment. It is logical, clear. He notices something small. Her final measure includes a penciled rest not present in the earlier drafts. She inserted silence, a single beat where none existed before. The rest interrupts the pattern, not dramatically, just precisely. He underlines the note, intentional pause. He reviews the early interviews with renewed attention. Benjamin R. noted her quieter tone in late weeks. The Academy instructor noted she withdrew slightly to focus. The sister noted predictability unchanged. He correlates the elements. Increased interiority, final silent measure, withheld folder, tucked away cassette. He writes, not secretive, simply private. He examines the revision sheet by BR again. There are pencil erasures. Under the erasures, faint graphite shapes of different note sequences. He notices an erased signature attempt, barely visible, initial curve before a straight line. Someone almost signed. He writes, attempted signature on revision page, then retracted. The detail is small, but it shifts something internal. Not emotion, just recognition of human uncertainty. He cross-references the Academy roster from that year. Contact data for Benjamin R. expired. Last address listed, near the lakeside property in the photo. He requests updated location through records, not urgent, simply procedural. Then he returns to her file. He rereads the initial forensic outcome. No forced entry, no alarm triggered, no sign of struggle. Cause listed not as violence but as sudden cessation. The phrasing clinical, minimal. He sets the medical report aside. He focuses instead on a line in her sister's statement. She seemed content, not expectant. Content, not expectant. He writes, "State of rest, not anticipation." He clears the desk, organizes papers again by chronology. He places the cassette at the center, the winter folder notes beside it. He sees her life not as fractured but aligned. No sudden variable appears. No betrayal, no dramatic pivot. He recognizes the logic forming. She lived with steady rhythm, composed with steady hand, connected quietly with her collaborator. Her final arrangements shifted tone, not to break pattern but to refine it. He reads the revision again. BR's annotated suggestion, hold the line longer. Then her penciled reply beside it, let silence breathe. Not disagreement, but difference in understanding of completion. He writes, her closure was her own tempo. He leans back, letting the quiet fill the space as it did her room. He tastes dust in the air, faint archival dryness, a reminder that cases are not always ruptures but pauses left uncompleted. The fax machine clicks. Updated address for Benjamin R. arrives. He lives now out of state, retired piano instructor. Not elusive, not hidden, just beyond the circle of the case that once held him. He drafts a request for call scheduling. No urgency, only inquiry. Before leaving the office, he looks once more at her penciled rest. A single beat of quiet. Not a secret, not an omission, just her timing. He thinks of how her final piece on the cassette held its line longer than expected, no stress, no tremor. He steps outside. The air is pale with early evening. Cars pass without rush. The world continues its rhythm. His steps are measured on the pavement. He feels no surge of victory, no revelation, just alignment. Life continues, even where notes ended. He writes one final observation before heading home. Completion is sometimes pause, not crescendo. The phone call with Benjamin R. is scheduled at 10:00 a.m. The investigator sits at his desk before the hour, the cassette and folder neatly positioned to his right, the scene photos returned to their envelope. He waits in a balanced quiet, pen aligned parallel to the table edge. When the clock hand reaches precisely, he lifts the receiver. A soft click, then a voice that carries age but clarity. Yes. Long silence before response, intentional. This is regarding Linnea Hartwell. A pause on the other side, not startled, not resistant, simply reflective. I remember her. Words come slowly, unforced. She was steady, the investigator says. Yes, steady. Not conversation, just exchange of factual memory. You collaborated, he continues. Yes, music, nothing else. The tone is plain, without hesitation or embellishment. The investigator asks about the winter arrangements. The reply arrives soft. She wanted a softer end. The line settles. No narrative, no dramatic confession, only confirmation of what already formed in logic. She changed tempo. Yes, she said the piece needed quiet, not volume. The investigator notes that phrasing. Quiet, not volume. It matches her penciled rest, the final measure. He asks gently. Were there disagreements? No, she simply refined her own voice. I followed where I could. He writes, collaboration without friction. A breath across the line, not emotional but present. She was at peace, Benjamin adds. Not finality, not closure, just peace. We rehearsed one last time, he continues. She slowed the line, held the last tone, then she smiled. That detail lands without dramatic weight, simply truth. The investigator writes it exactly. She smiled. No more questions are needed. The call ends with a soft thanks, and the receiver returns to its cradle with the same restraint that defines the entire case. He rearranges the papers on his desk. The investigative conclusion is not charged with revelation, not driven by hidden rupture. Instead, it forms through clear continuity, a life structured by rhythm, a final work defined by gentle pause. The official archive update begins. He types steadily, each line factual. Subject Linnea Hartwell. Date 1986. Case classification. Reviewed, confirmed non-disruptive closure. Evidence summary, complete. Contextual note. Final creative transition signaled internal resolution, not external interruption. He does not use heightened language, only what is offered through documentation and tone. Her life rests in measured balance. He makes a final visit to the preserved room, not by necessity but by responsible closure. The door opens with the same soft latch. The air is unchanged, still, dust faint in the strips of daylight, time held in gentle suspension. He enters with careful steps, no intrusion. The room accepts him with quiet recognition. He stands by the cabinet again, noting the absence of tension, the presence of framing. Her scores aligned, her world still pure in intent. He sees again the faint imprint where her cello once stood. He imagines, not dramatically but precisely, her final rehearsal posture. Straight-backed, bow poised, eyes not distant but focused on the line she was shaping. He leaves the door open a moment longer, letting natural light brush the carpet, acknowledging not grief but completion. The case file now closes not because a hidden truth explodes outward, but because all parts align gently, logically, without conflict. A composed life resolved through composed measures. He returns the cassette to long-term archive storage, labeling it not as artifact of loss but as record of creative presence. He files the winter folder alongside, no longer missing, no longer displaced. Outside, the weather is mild. The world continues its pace without awareness of the work just completed. Yet the investigator feels, in precise interior quiet, that he has honored what remained. Not sensational, not fractured, just true. He visits the family as custom requires. Linnea's sister, June, opens the door in a calm posture. The living room holds framed photos, her image among them, unchanged. The investigator sits with the same measured tone he carried from the beginning. She completed her final work, he says simply. June nods once, not breaking, just absorbing. She always finished what she started. He confirms with a slight motion. He shows her a scanned excerpt of the last measure, the single rest. June sees it with steady attention. She believed in quiet endings, June says. The words do not tremble, they do not rise, they exist in balance. He leaves the house without weight, only clear acknowledgement. Her life remains intact, her final composition honored, her existence neither erased nor exaggerated. Back in his office, he finalizes the concluding note in the internal system. Result: alignment with lived rhythm. Impact: none destabilizing. Resolution: quiet completion. He files it without ceremony. The drawer slides closed with smooth track sound. No echo. Evening arrives slowly. The blinds cast their narrow lines again. The tape deck is stored, the evidence envelope sealed. The office hums with light, the faint sound of circulating air. He sits for a moment longer, allowing stillness. The case rests not as cold inquiry solved through force, but as measured return to intention. Linnea's presence remains in notes, not incident. He reflects, not sentimentally, not dramatically, simply truthfully. Justice here is not correction, but recognition. He stands, turns off the desk lamp, leaving only hallway light to trace the edge of the floor. The door closes with a controlled click. Outside, the night is even. He walks to his car with balanced stride, not triumphant, not burdened. The road ahead carries routine, quiet intersections, steady signals. Life continues at tempo. As he starts the engine, he holds a final thought. Not verdict, not explanation, just human acknowledgement. Sometimes resolution is not sound, but rest. The car moves forward, lights guiding through clear lanes. The world does not pause, but he carries the measured cadence of her final work within the quiet of his drive. No agitation, no fracture. Only the understanding that closure, in rare instances, is not discovery but respect. The investigation ends without spectacle, the room sealed again not by tape but by completed purpose. Her music remains, her tempo intact, her final measure quietly holding its place in time. He does not speak, there is no need. The night road stretches in clean lines, and somewhere her last note still ascends, gentle, exact, resolved just beyond its audible range.